Welcome to Dr. Jeffrey Roth's Looking Good and Feeling Great podcast, live from Las Vegas, with his co-host, Darrell Craig Harris.
Welcome back to a Looking Good, Feeling Great podcast with Dr. Jeffrey Roth.
Hi, folks. It's Dr. Jeffrey Roth here, your board-certified plastic surgeon in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you very much for joining us.
Beautiful Las Vegas. So Las Vegas and plastic surgery is our topic for today. It's actually kind of a long history with the showgirls, with the waitresses, all of that stuff.
All of that stuff.
Yeah.
So the top five, depending on who you ask, right? Top five places for plastic surgery in the United States. And this actually is data generated by the implant company, so it's a real number.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes it's not inflated.
So it's
pardon the pun.
There, thank you very much. Yeah, so
I do what I can.
So I'm waiting for the rim shot. So can't believe he did that. Okay, so all right. So the top five places breast augmentation surgery are Los Angeles, New York, Las Vegas, Miami, Dallas. And that's been consistent years and years and years. And that's really kind of interesting, especially if you look at how many people are in each of those towns, et cetera.
Right.
So, but Las Vegas has always modernly been known for the glitz and glamour and all of that. And plastic surgery has had its impact on that. If you ask me, 30, 40 years ago, when again there was only 250,000 people in town, there was about 4 plastic surgeons, and as I recall, it was Vinnick, Bon Jovi, Dombrowski, and Koff. And those folks did everything. They did reconstructive surgery. They did all sorts of stuff.
Because it actually was very much a small town.
It was very much a small town.
Yeah.
So and if you know Las Vegas, basically Eastern was the easternmost street, and then there was nothing past Decatur, et cetera. So really, they thought the airport was way out there, and now it's like in the middle of everything. So because of the exponential growth, and now there's 2.5 million people here in Southern Nevada. It's craziness. But having said all of that, is going forward, really it was the glitz and glamour. And growing up here, it was really kind of interesting because, you would be in junior high school or first year or two in high school, and the buddy that you're with, that you're running around, you're playing, tag football with, his mom would roll up to take him home, and she would be, 5'10" and blonde
Knockout,
and gorgeous.
right?
And she had, one of the jackets from one of the shows in town, whether it was Lido or whether it was Follies or whatever the case may be. And, that's my mom, Okay, right. Well, she's mom, and she's also...
Your mom's kind of hot.
and Stacy's mom.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and she's a showgirl in Vegas.
Right. Yeah.
When I was working at the MGM, which then became the Bally's, which is now the Horseshoe on the Strip, I actually was running a T-shirt shop. I mean, running it, I was employed by it. I was a high school, right? So it gave me a job. And it was right in front of the old theaters at the MGM, it was awesome because they would have all the old MGM movies there, which was a lot of fun. And it had couches, and it actually had cocktail service. Of course, not for me, I get a Coke, right? Because, kid. But it was really, really cool. But they had a side door over there, and the showgirls and such would get all made up, and then they would get out that door and then go to the employee dining room and then come back. These girls were just tall and gorgeous and all made up.
And from all over the world.
And
move here, right?
It was incredible. In fact, one of the gals who I went to high school with, she was a cheerleader, dancer, all that stuff. She was into that, a professional dancer and all. And sometimes these people get hurt. And by that, I mean, there was an incident a long time ago where they have these big, huge stages with these big, huge sets. And those gals, they were truly athletes because they had the stuff on their head was like 15 pounds.
Right. Yep.
And in heels. And they had to go run up and down stairs in the back. It was nuts, right? And so there was a time where they were moving this big set up and down. It's like one of those things on the aircraft carrier, right?
Yeah.
It's like and she misstepped and went into the hole where it used to be.
Yeah.
She fell like 3 stories, hit her head. She was okay, but that ended her career. And the funny thing about that was I was walking through St. Rose Hospital, and I'm doing rounds and stuff, and I hear, "Hey, Jeffrey," and I look around, and it's her. And I'm like, "Hey, what's going on? What you be?" She says, "Oh, yeah, Papa, I became a nurse and stuff." She says, "Oh." I said, "Weren't you, dancing at the Father's?" She says, "Yeah." She says, "Did you hear about the girl that fell?" She says, "Yeah, that was me." I'm like, "Oh."
Wow.
I'm like, "Come on."
Wow.
And she's like, "Oh, my God." So anyway, so that's the kind of stuff that...
Right.
and great gal. Went beautiful, great, but she was really beautiful on the inside and smart and everything else.
Yeah. And it's funny too with those. I mean, even really the kind of the cocktail waitress thing too. But they actually don't really have. They have a window of time that they work in most of those places, especially the shows.
Right, the shows.
So if they do 5 or 10 years, it's
tough. And they were doing a bunch of shows a week and everything else. And so to your point with the cocktail waitresses, that's kind of its own thing too, because there are some folks downtown and Caesars, they've been there 30 years.
Right.
And we have
if not longer.
If not longer. And and so and they keep them around because they really know customer service.
Yeah.
And they have people that have come out to see them. I come out to see you like times 30 years.
Right. They have fans that literally fly in from Europe that have known them forever. And
it's amazing. And you talk to the gals at Caesars, and they used to love, I don't know if you remember, now you guys are going to Google this, is the ones that look like togas. And they have this cone that they put the hair through and everything else like that. And people back then, I mean, everybody carries a camera now, but now people would stop and take pictures with them and everything. And they loved that. And again, that was the glitz and glamour. That was the Rat Pack. That was Aunt Margaret. That was Elvis. That was Tom Jones. That was all of that stuff.
I caught a little bit of that when I moved here in 1989. And again, too, for me, it was, compared to now, it was kind of a small town. But those guys, Tom Jones, Wayne, all those guys still had their shows going.
100%. And so that was always the glitz and glamour and the fantasy that is Las Vegas. But if you live here, those girls that were in those shows happened to be picking up your buddy, at the schoolyard. So it was a bit bizarre.
Yeah.
From a plastic surgery standpoint, yes, we've always had, breast augmentations, always been at the top of the list, as long, the facelift, lipo, tummy tucks, all that kind of stuff. Because again, those gals, as they move along in life, may have had a couple kids or may have hit menopause or that sort of thing. And so you tend to help them along, especially if they want to continue in that world of glitz and glamour, et cetera. And what's interesting from a biological standpoint is we've been seeing more and more gals come in from that era, 70s, 80s, 90s and stuff, and getting things done. But especially we've had folks that says, oh, doc, I've had my breast augs in for 20 years, 30 years, 35 years, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
So with those folks, oftentimes we've been doing a lot of removal, replace, downsizes as of late. And when you do that, you tend to do some lifting, etc. And some of the old silicones, they had a higher leak rate and they had a consistency more like maple syrup. And so their capsules, which is the capsule that surrounds the implant when you put it in, tend to be a little harder, etc. And those are the ones, and we've seen this, we documented this on our social media and our webpage, that they come out and they're kind of like a robin's egg. They may even be calcified.
And the breasts have a hard feeling to them.
Hard feeling. That's capsular scarring or capsular contracture. And so we take that out, we wash the heck out of everything. We put, if they elect to, some actually say, okay, enough already. They were great, but enough already. Or put smaller implants in. And the new ones are of course, much more technically advanced than the other ones. And we put them in, and then oftentimes a little bit of lift. And people love that. And they're back at the gym, and they're back at doing their thing, whether as a server or a host or as a dancer or whatever the case may be. But yeah, there's them folks that have been around forever. I still remember this one gal. Myself, she was at Binion's Horseshoe downtown forever. I think they found her when they broke ground on the place. She was great. But she was about 4'6", okay, and had,
carrying heavy drink trays.
Oh, heavy. I mean, that's a tough job, and smoke, and
they do make really good money. And my ex-wife was a cocktail waitress. Right. They make really good money, but it's not an easy job.
They earn it, and she had like this big. I think Marge Simpson. She had this big blue hair, the hair thing going on. It was great, and these big chandelier earrings and the whole thing, and it was a while back, and I was downtown for some reason, and I was hungry, and Binion's Horseshoe always had a big sports book, and where there's a sports book, there's usually a deli next to it, and Binion's happened to be really good when this is back in the day, and so I'm like, I'm going to go get myself a sandwich, right? So I go ahead and I turn the corner, and I almost took her out because, and I didn't see her. I felt bad, but we didn't bump into each other. It was close. Yeah. And I went, oh, I'm sorry, miss. And so I called my brother Jack. I'm like, you never knew who I literally just bumped into. And he's like, what? And I describe her. She says, I know exactly who that is. I said,
how funny.
I said, yeah. So she's been serving me since I was 21. You know what I mean? Which was
maybe before, but we won't talk about
we're not going to admit to that.
Exactly.
So, but having they read a tight ship down there. But having said, I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, some of these gals been forever. And if you go, especially you go to Caesars or you go to some of the old school places, but especially downtown. Hey, some of the waiters have been down there for forever.
Right.
Some of the guys parking the cars, bellmen, they've been down there forever.
It was quite competitive to even get those jobs.
Oh, 100%. So yeah, you had to.
Still is.
Back then, you had to be quote unquote juiced in, meaning that
somebody's uncle.
If you have pull in
Uncle
Vegas,
Vinny.
right? Well, yeah,
that's another story.
So the old story in Vegas is hey, do you have any juice there? And so by juice, the definition is do you have any pull? Do you have any sway? Do you have any swagger? And those folks that had points had the most juice. And by points, that meant, do you have a piece of the hotel? Do you have a percentage? Do you have some vested interest in that? And so if somebody's kid all of a sudden winds up with a busboy job, somebody says, oh, well, yeah, he got juiced into it. And with the corporatization of Las Vegas, that happens a lot less.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's still, hey, the comment, hey, do you have any juice down there? Can I make that? No. Oh, okay. Yeah. You have to go somewhere else. So, yeah.
Do you think, like the procedures, I mean, obviously back then, I guess breast aug would be probably the most popular. But do you think has that really, the list of procedures, I guess, maybe has it changed since then?
Yeah, I think
what's
it's
more common?
Consistent. I think, well, two things. I think that the number of that is still consistent in as much as there's still 400,000 breast augmentations done in the United States. So 100,000 of them are for reconstruction purposes, which leaves, 300,000. Right. And depending on who you read, there's, tens of millions of women getting breast procedures all over the world, et cetera.
Yeah, we talked about Dubai and
all of that. So to your question is, I think things are changing a bit. We're seeing obviously more facelifts. We're seeing more lipo, more tummies, but that's always been around.
Yeah.
But again, some of the
Botox,
right? But some of the technology, to your point, wasn't around 20, 30 years ago, which is your Botox and your fillers and some of your cool sculpting and some of the other machines that you may have that technically we just didn't have back then. And as we said before, is those individual patients also evolve from the 20-year-old that wants augs to go ahead and be a cocktail waitress and all that. And why that's a big deal? People are like, well, you don't have to have augs to be a cocktail waitress. Okay, let's back up, right? So that's number one. But systemically has been part of the glitz and glamour, et cetera. And they've done this scientific study actually that tips go up both from males and females.
Right, because now we have male cocktail servers too.
But actually the females will tip more, and actually that was done on Mythbusters of all things.
Interesting.
So you can go ahead and Google that, and they put this gal in a coffee shop, I forget the city, and they had the tip jar, and then they went ahead and put a couple of cutlets in there and put the tip jar out again, and they've done that study. So it's a phenomenon, and then we can go ahead and
I mean you can debate the ethics or whatever of that, but it's just reality. And those girls, for them, I mean that's how they make a living,
and especially
part of how they make a living.
So and then especially those folks who may be a single mom and want to kind of more money, etc. So there's that. And then as things move along, after you've had the kids and this and that, then you're talking about remove, replacing, lifting, and then you may talk about some liposuction. You may talk about, and it just depends. I mean, it depends on what your body does over time. How stretched out do you get with having babies, etc., weight gain and loss. And so we see that as now I'm getting older, as the practice is we'll say that the practice is getting older.
Good.
And I'm seeing we'll go with that. So now we're seeing repeat patients that came in 7-10 years ago or 12 years ago, and hey, this is where I am in this part of my life, et cetera, and kind of go from there.
Yeah.
And that's exciting to see because we get to see. I mean, and again, I enjoy talking to people. Drives my office manager crazy because I spend too long with folks. So you have 3 kids and how are they now and and all that kind of stuff. For me, again, very much trying to be a country doctor, if you will, and really kind of get back to that. And it's fun to see how people, move along, the timeline.
Right. And we have covered that before, but we should, since we're on the topic of breast implants, every 10 years, I think basically is the rule of thumb, right?
Well, yeah.
When they should be changed out or updated.
That was in the 70s, 80s.
Okay.
Nowadays, if you can get a good, 13, 15 years out of an implant, that's pretty good. They're not lifetime devices. Yes, you have to switch them out at some point. But the leak rate, to your point, of the old silicone implants in the 70s and 80s was about 50% at 10 years. Now that leak rate is down between 5 and 10%, depending on who you read. So that technology has gotten better, just like cars have gotten better.
Everything.
Technology with airbags and all that safety stuff. So that's gotten better.
Is there a difference between procedures and then the emphasis, I guess, of different types of procedures between, say, Beverly Hills, Las Vegas, New York? Is it all pretty much typically the same? I guess you see the numbers on that.
I think those 5 cities, I think all have an element of glitz and glamour to them, the ones that we talked about. I think that things may be different here in Las Vegas than maybe, a few hundred miles away in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or in the Midwest. I think there's some different sensibilities. I think there's more in common, and they make fun of Vegas and all that kind of stuff because sometimes we can be a bit over the top. I'll be the first one.
It can be easy to make fun of Vegas.
Yeah, so you got to love a place that makes fun of itself. I was just recently at a charity thing, and it was go as your favorite Vegas character night, which was great. And if there was a city that can make fun of itself, it's Las Vegas. And so there was a few Siegfried and Roy's. There was several gingers from the Casino, the movie.
Oh, okay, right.
There was a few brides because we're the wedding capital. There was one dead-on Priscilla Presley bride.
Oh, funny.
Dead ringer. And we actually wore... My wife came up with this, which is genius. There was a place called the Showboat here, which has been torn down. But growing up, it was a place that had 100 bowling alleys. And so we went as bowlers. She actually got old school Showboat bowling.
I saw that. I saw that.
Shirts, and it was with our name on it and the whole thing. And it was great. So yeah, you got to love a city. And there was a couple of guys with crooked noses. We'll put it that way. That showed up. So you gotta love a town that can make fun of itself.
Yeah, it's a colorful town, as they say.
It is that. But having said that, to your question is I think there's different sensibilities in different parts of the country. I think that Vegas is, if you get away from the Strip, I think is more like a suburban town than most people want to give it credit for.
Right.
As far as that goes, so that part I think is the same. And yeah, we do our fair share of entertainers or people that you would see on marquees and stuff, but they like to keep that on the down low. And the other thing too is we've been getting a lot of folks from Southern California who people would know, but they don't want to be found out in their own town,
right? Because there's a lot of paparazzi,
right? So they come to Vegas and they get stuff done, and then they go back home and they go, oh, you look, so I went, I went for a vacation.
Who shall go unnamed,
right? So we get that, but again, away from the Strip, I think it's another terrific town of about 2 million plus people, and as quirky as it may be, and as they're always tearing up the streets and drive you bananas as it may be, it's still my favorite place to live.
Yeah, something else that's really new within the last few years to Las Vegas is professional athletes. So we've always had, you've been involved in boxing with Top Rank. But also now we have the Las Vegas Raiders, we have the Raiderettes,
right?
We have possibly professional baseball coming. We have the Golden Knights hockey.
Sure.
So, and we're seeing, or I should say, you're seeing a lot more of those folks as well, right?
Sure. So yeah, growing up, we had the Rebels, which were spectacular. It was the best show in town. That was
a few years ago.
The tagline. We won that in 1990.
Right.
We're still hanging on to that. And
Tarkanian.
That's and all that. And so. There's that blocking versus charge call with Duke, but I'm over it.
But I'm not bitter.
I'm over it. I'm over it. Anyway, so we always had that, but then yes, to your point, now we have professional football with the Raiders, and they've really tried to make themselves really part of the town.
Absolutely.
And so Mark Davis has done a great job of outreach and all that. And some of the old school high schools, mine included, and the fields were awful. They were just terrible. And the Raiders gave them new AstroTurf football fields.
That's amazing.
It's just at $250,000 a pop.
Yeah.
And it's just it was laughable, and now they're the best in town. And so he's really trying to integrate that. So so then you have the Raiders, and then you have the Raiderettes. We had semi-pro hockey, and now you have the Vegas Golden Knights, who made it to the Stanley Cup Finals and all that. And that's a terrific show in town as well. We have the world champion Las Vegas Aces. And
that's right, women's basketball.
Women's basketball, and today is International Women's Day, so shout out to the Aces.
Yep,
so,
absolutely.
And it's fun, by the way. You go down there.
We just had Darren Waller marry one of the Aces.
Yeah, right.
So it's the connection of the...
There is that, and Mark Davis owns a team and stuff, and he sits courtside, and he takes it seriously, and so that's great. And then baseball, we've had AAA baseball for a long time now, and now the A's are making noises that they want to come here, which would be great. With that, I think it's really interesting because a lot of the corporatization of sports, they really didn't like an idea of Vegas being anywhere near sports people because they thought they would corrupt the sport. And what actually happened was the reverse is the NBA was looking into some issues with a referee who they thought was doing weird things. And so somebody finally called one of the guys he knew in Vegas, and he says, "What do you think about this?" He says, "Oh yeah, no, he's been doing that for 6 months." And they went, "What?" They said, this is like our stock exchange, right? We take this seriously. This is our Wall Street, right? The guys in the sports book. So, and those guys know everything. They know when the guy sneezed. They know.
Yeah, that gets very deep.
It gets really. And I mean, you go talk to some of these guys, and they have 8 screens going about. I mean, they're looking any edge. They're looking for any edge. And so they say, "Oh yeah, and we can tell the games, and we can tell you this and that." Well, what? And then the NBA sent a team out. And they're like, "Oh my God, you guys really do take this seriously." And they're like, "Yeah." And so since that time, then they've had sort of a partnership of like kind of watching the games, et cetera. And so now we have the WNBA, and then hopefully there's allegedly going to have 2 expansion teams. One of them is going to be the Seattle Supersonics, and one is going to be us here in Las Vegas.
Oh, interesting.
So that's the word on the street. And then, as you know, boxing's been synonymous with Las Vegas for a long time, and we've had some of the best championship fights in the world here in Las Vegas. And it really, truly is a magical night when you have 18,000 people screaming for their guy.
Yeah,
and then
it's exciting. I mean, whether or not you like those kind of sports, it's just the event, people watching.
Oh, the people watching.
It's always been a huge thing in Vegas,
right? And everybody does better, meaning that. And here in Vegas, it's weird because you think that that people are transient and stuff like that, but people really root for each other. For example, if there's a big event in town, whether it's the NFL draft or the All-Star game or whatever, is you roll up to whatever hotel and the bellmen are running around crazy and the valet guys are running around crazy and everything else, and everybody's like, "How you doing? You busy? You making money? Good for you." Everybody. And
it really supports the town.
And then from there, there's very much a trickle down effect to Albertsons Supermarket, to the 7-Eleven, to everybody. Everybody it does better when the town's busy. Yeah. And now the town's getting busier and busier, especially to your point with all the sports. And Las Vegas has been that portion that we can really handle hospitality. We have 150,000 rooms here in Clark County.
I know, it's nuts,
which is bananas. So so we can handle, believe it or not, multiple big events at the same time. And you see that with college basketball championship season, because a lot of the conferences, people love coming to Vegas, and a lot of the conferences will have their tournaments here because they know that you can take care of it and not at a great cost, because the food's not bad, the room's not bad, air travel's not bad. So So it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's not hard to get people to come to Vegas.
No, it's not a hard sell. Yeah, and typically, we don't get frozen over or that kind of thing. So usually, the airport's working, except if it's high winds. But by and large, yeah. And then I like to think plastic surgeons support that and basically try to support the glitz and glamour a bit, and basically, the bottom line is to make people feel better about themselves. And whether it's a showgirl or whether it's a soccer mom or whether it's a busboy or whatever the case may be, hopefully they feel better about themselves, and hopefully they can go ahead and help their families out
Yeah, and that's an awesome outcome, and it's great to be partners in the community with that, and now you do a lot with the community for benefits and different things. So you guys are very involved. And
sure, no, it's the least I can do for everything that Las Vegas has given me. And I went to public high school here and everything else like that, and Las Vegas has given me opportunity. It's still a place where you can do lots of things, and there's still a lot of opportunity.
You can still achieve the American dream, especially here.
And if you can dream it, you can do it here. And that's one thing. They're like, okay, well, let's go ahead and we'll just like close down the strip and let the NASCAR guys do donuts. Okay, sure. Yeah. What time?
Yeah, you can't do that in New York City.
Right. What time you want to do that? F1's coming to town, which is going to be spectacular.
Right.
And they're like, okay, yeah, they're going to go down the strip. Sure, sounds great. Yeah. So, well, when you guys are done, we just have to repave the whole thing. Okay, you know what I mean? What's the number? All right,
exactly,
yeah, sure. Yeah, most everyone like, yeah, you're mine. Yeah, okay. Does that pencil out? Okay, yeah, let's do it. So if you can dream it, you can do it.
Yeah,
so.
I think I think we're both good examples of that. We both have kind of came from fairly humble beginnings and have worked hard. So there's definitely that can still happen here.
It can still, yes, it's absolutely. If there's a place that you have a dream and you want to pull it off, I think this is a town full of opportunity.
Absolutely. Let people know how they can find you. And
sure. So
Las Vegas Plastic Surgery.
That's right. So we're all over the place. Our Keystone place, our home base, is the website, which is www.jjrothmd.com. That's JJROTHMD.com. And on it, we have lots and lots and lots of information. So it's a good place to at least read up on the procedure that you're thinking about. We have befores and afters and all that. We're also all over social media on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok.
It's a long list.
It's a lot. And MySpace, I think.
No, there's no more MySpace.
So there. So that's where else am I missing anything? I think that's it.
I think that's it. Yeah, and it's always growing. There's always something new.
Yes, no kidding. So yeah, and to that effect is we actually do look at the comments and we try to respond to them. And if you want to hear something on our podcast, give us a call at the office. We still answer the phone. And you can talk to a human being, and or get us through the webpage at the contact on there. And we get lots of good ideas for our content. So, yeah, please keep them coming, and we're happy to answer questions.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like and subscribe, and actually leave reviews. Reviews are appreciated, and you can do that on all the podcast outlets. And thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. For further information, please visit the podcast website link for Dr. Jeffrey Roth. See you next time.